Love, it has been good to me this time around. Things were ever bound to change when it was found. Sugar never tasted sweeter on my lips. My heart is now intact and I can find
Well, hello, good evening, and welcome to Monday's edition of the X-RAD show, the talk show that gets you talking on the Xandermonium Network, live from New York City. I'm Xander Gibb.
And I'm the Truth Fairy.
Oh, yes, sirree. On today's show, the hottest of topics, and in part two, comedian Steven Snyder joins us. More to come in a mere moment. So you can join in the conversation in the feed around the live video. You can call us. We'll tell you when that's going to be possible. We're going to be taking calls via Facebook Live today, but only for a certain portion of the show. And you can tweet us. The tweet deets are on the X-RAD Facebook show page for today. So welcome back to the show, Thomas. How is the world with you?
Oh, the world is good. Hey, I got a question. Is this Steve Snyder, is he the guy here in L.A., or am I thinking of a different one?
Yes, he absolutely is, yeah.
Ball?
That's the one, yes.
Oh, wow, he's really cool. I have a quick fun story about him. I remember being, because I'm a voting member of the Hollywood Congress of Republicans, and Andrew Breitbart was giving a speech, and he was late, and he was addressing us, and Stephen was in the front row, and Andrew came in flustered and sweaty and late and stuff, and he went up to speak, and then he stopped, and he's like, I just have to say this. That is the most handsome man I have ever seen, because Stephen is like 6'4", and he recently got married last year. I didn't go to his bachelor party, but I was invited, and I kept teasing him that I was going to jump out of the cake. But he's a really, really smart and nice guy, and I'll always remember that Andrew Breitbart, before his address to us at the Hollywood Congress of Republicans, stopped, and he's like, I just have to say it. This is the most handsome man I've ever seen. Stephen's 6'4", he's huge, and he's a really, really cool guy. His new wife is really nice. About 2 years ago, I went to this 4th of July barbecue that him and his then fiance were at, so I know him very well, and he's a really cool guy, so that was neat. I wasn't sure if it was the same Steven Snyder.
It absolutely is, and he's been on the show. He's been on the show before. I'm sorry, folks. I'm having some trouble right now with Google, so we will get there with you. It is just it's actually just so bad that I've had to switch over to Chrome. But do bear with us. We will kind of get to involving you in the show and telling you more about what is kind of going on and the new way with regards to phone-in. So I want to just I want to discuss a couple of things first of all. Now we were talking on this before the show about blind faith, and I'm not going to talk about any kind of specifics from either of our lives, but don't you find as a Christian that we are kind of we're almost always having to kind of live on blind faith? But what do you think that what's the kind of premise behind it? What keeps us going through that blind faith? Do you think it's more that we kind of lean back on our experiences from before with regards to the fact that God has never let us down before? So,
and also, Jesus told us that, Jesus said, to worship the Father with childlike faith, which
Right.
is, like a child, you just tell them, oh, the tooth fairy is coming tonight, and they 100% believe,
Right.
and it has to be that way. And, prayers are answered a lot quicker that way, too, when you, I know that this is a kind of a hot topic for Christians, because a lot of Christians don't believe in asking for things. I'm not one of those.
No.
A lot of Christians believe only in asking, God's will be done. But I believe that God wants us to be happy and have abundance. I don't see any problems with praying for money. I know a lot of Christians do, but when you do things like that, the success rate on prayer is much more higher, the percentage, when you do it with absolute 100% childlike blind faith.
Right. Absolutely. And do you think there's, because I know some people kind of think, they pray for big flash cars and a house with a swimming pool and all that kind of thing. But, Jesus actually said, my God shall supply all your needs according to my riches and glory. And so, for me, it's kind of about the difference between wants and needs. I need a car right now. What I want is a, $30,000 Escalade, but I know I'm not going to get that. So where do you think as Christians we find kind of middle ground on between wants and needs?
I don't know. I guess that, because that's very fluid, and everyone's going to interpret that differently. I don't see any problem with praying for that kind of car if that's what you really want.
Right.
I believe that God would want you to have it if that's what you want.
I
don't
do
see any
too.
problem with that, but I know that it's kind of, again, it's kind of a hot topic, and there's division
There is.
among Christians with that. But yeah, wants and needs, sometimes they're the same, sometimes they're very different, and sometimes there's just a fine line. They're so fluid, so it can kind of go either way.
Yeah, because there's the kind of like name it and claim it crowd, which I wouldn't kind of profess to be a member of. And when I was in the ministry, I actually preached on this sometimes, but it's the difference between kind of name it and claim it for things, and name it and claim it for the fruits of the Spirit, and using those things in order to be able to be a better Christian.
I'm not familiar with the phrase name it, claim it. Elaborate.
Well, name it, claim it is kind of, people take things from the Bible and kind of twist them to their own kind of like devices. In order to kind of say, oh, well, because I'm a Christian, it's like God, welcome to God, the game show. And today, if you're good, God will do this, and this. And that's kind of what I refer to as the name it and claim it people. And I don't judge them because, the thing is for me, we're all at different points in our journey. And I think we all have different needs, wants, and problems, etc., etc. But I think it's all, I talk about my evolution, but it's interesting how, I was talking to Dr. Gina Loudon, who's been very prolific in my political evolution. I was talking to her over the weekend, with regards to the fact she put out a video last week talking about how much Roger Ailes has meant in her life and her career, and we were kind of talking, we were talking about it, from that perspective. But my evolution has not just been political, but it's also been spiritual. But I think that we sometimes imagine as Christians that growth and that evolution is going to be always onwards and upwards, but sometimes it's like kind of all the way across for a while. Do you know what I mean?
I do, and because there's so many different branches of Christianity, and also because it's going to vary. If you go to church, each pastor is going to be different and have different beliefs and different interpretations of Scripture. And so it's kind of, it's also regional, so it depends on where you live. Like here in LA, you really can't go to church because they've all been profaned and perverted. I think I've talked about this on the show before. They really don't teach the Gospels. They teach social justice and global warming. And, I've had friends who have gone to church on Easter Sunday, when President Obama was president, and the pastor would say things about the Blessed Barack and all that stuff. So,
are you kidding me?
If you don't live in LA and you go to church, you're lucky because, you have the option of or the privilege of going to church, where here in LA we kind of don't, because for the most part, they've all really been infiltrated and profaned. And there's this church kind of, not really down the street from me, but like 5 minutes away, and they have these giant signs out that, about the Syrian refugees that say, "Refugees welcome, Jesus was a refugee, # refugees welcome." So, if you're living somewhere where you have the luxury of going to an honest, holy, decent church, be thankful for that, because we can't here in LA.
Right. That's a concern, but that always kind of bothers me. And it's mostly liberal churches that use that phraseology of Jesus was a refugee.
He wasn't a refugee. I don't understand where their reasoning is on that.
No, because he was still in his own country, wasn't he? He was just, the ideology is that they were looking for somewhere to stay because of the kind of what was the census of that time, more than anything else. But that always kind of makes me go grrr when people say, Jesus was a refugee. It's kind of.
He wasn't.
No.
He was Jewish. I mean, come on. I mean, they were welcome. They were escaping from, the infanticide that was going on, but that had nothing to do with refugees. It wasn't like they were welcome some places and not others. It was that they knew that the babies were going to be killed there, and so they got out. That's not a refugee crisis, by today's definition. So the comparison is it's moot. It's not. It isn't. There's no there. Like the Russia thing.
And it's nothing to do with Lauryn Hill either, then, basically.
No, definitely.
Oh,
not.
No, I was just going to start singing.
Has she been profaning the word of God lately?
No. I was just being facetious because their band was called the Fugees, and so I was just being facetious so I could sing, strumming my pain with his fingers.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
So I want to do a little bit of housekeeping very quickly with regards to the show. I want people to kind of be aware what we're trying to do with the show. We are trying to move towards a 2-hour show. We're also trying to move towards getting some syndication. But kind of in the interim of that, we've still kind of got to survive. And I want to, just for a minute, let you know the things that you can do to kind of be involved in that. And one of those things is that actually costs you absolutely zero is when you're watching the show to actually share the show, because every time you share the show, that means everyone in your timeline can see that the show is going on and can come and look and join in and be a part of it, etc., etc. But also because we don't get any funding for the show. There are ways you can help, and I'm not saying give us money for free. We have products that are associated with the show. There's my book, which is semi-autobiographical, called The Boy from Beyond the Ice House. There's also my CD, which is called The Platinum Prequel. I'm just sharing the links in the feed right now. So take a look at those. Feel free to click on the links and to buy, because the show does cost a lot of money to make, and if you enjoy it, please show your appreciation for that. No one's kind of twisting your arm and saying you have to buy, but please do, because it costs a lot, in time and money to put the show together. And while we're not syndicated, yours truly is kind of responsible for all that. So any way you can help with that, that would be that would be wonderful.
Oh, amen. Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye.
So I want to say hi to a few people, well, not a few people, but everybody in the live feed. If I can get back down to the bottom, because we like to involve people here. Hi to Gina. Hi to Gina B. Hi to Joan. Hi to Azelle. Hi to Tommy. Welcome. Hi to, gosh, I have to get some glasses. I'm squinting right now at the size of the writing. Hi to CV. Hi to Chet, who is from Freedom on Deck. He is out of Facebook jail. Hey, Flower. We hope you're good. Hey to, I saw Justin there earlier, Justin Dickinson. He's also from Freedom on Deck. And I'm just trying to get these likes all clicked and done. And welcome to everybody that's actually in the watching the show but not in the live feed. Feel free to come and join us. Hi to Sadie and hi to Cassie. Big kisses from Uncle X. And hi to Nick. And I think that's everybody. I hope I haven't left anybody out, because I often get messages after the show saying, "Hey Xander." Oh, and hi to Raymond. Welcome. I often get messages after the show saying, "Why didn't you say hello to me?" So if I don't say hello to anybody, it is accidental. I assure you, I do. So I want to jump right into a story, because I'm sure most of you know that. President Trump is out of the country this week, and there's no truth in the rumor that I've been staying in the White House and taking care of things in the Oval Office. It is just a rumor. He did ask me, but I couldn't get anybody to cover on the show. So he said today that he shared concerns about Iran, that Iran was driving Israel and many Arab states closer, and demanded that Tehran immediately cease military and financial backing of terrorists and militias. Now, in stressing threats from Iran, Mr. Trump echoed a theme laid out during the weekend meetings of Saudi Arabia with Muslim leaders from around the world, many wary of the Islamic Republic's growing religious influence and financial muscle. Now, Mr. Trump has vowed to do whatever necessary to broker peace between Israel and the Palestinians, dubbing a peace accord the ultimate deal. But ahead of this Holy Land visit, he gave little indication of how he could revive talks that collapsed in 2014. Now, Mr. Trump will meet Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas in the West Bank town of Bethlehem on Tuesday, and Palestinian leader said he hoped the meeting could be useful and fruitful and will bring results. In the Gaza Strip, dozens of Palestinians rallied against Mr. Trump and burned his picture and an effigy of him. How jolly wonderful and civilized. Trump received a warm welcome in Riyadh from Arab leaders, especially over his tough line on Tehran, which many Sunni Muslim Arab states regard as seeking control. Now, in Jerusalem, public remarks after talks with Israeli leaders on the first day of his two-day visit, he again focused on Iran, pledging he would never let Tehran acquire nuclear arms. Now, it's great to see him on his first trip, and I always like to be positive, but do you hold out any hope of Palestine ever stop being the rebel bastards that they've been since Hamas have been in charge?
Well, the president of Egypt said that he is confident that our new president, President Trump, is capable of doing the impossible. And I really believe that the entire region should be so proud. And despite the popular Western dismissive media narrative, the summit in Riyadh was a resounding success. And beyond the pageantry, the royal pageantry, we can only imagine the internal anxiety if our America had been defined, like we were talking about before about Christianity. If it had been defined by the West Barrel Baptist Church. So it's because they get that kind of stuff over there in their state media.
Right.
And so it's really good that we had President Trump so well received over there. I mean, this was an incredible American initiative and very pragmatic in the overall tone, but it was also filled with tremendous theoretical implications for future relations with Near Eastern Islamic cultures.
Right.
And it was very symbolic, and I believe it's a long-term political shift of mentality kind of within this general population throughout those regions that were represented in that big ballroom. If you watched the speech, you know, there were a lot of kings and sultans and presidents and prime ministers in there from that whole region. You know, I'm very optimistic that it's now going to include this kind of enhanced awareness of the United States and the true principles that we are founded in.
Right.
Because if you go back to Obama's apology tour, you know, where President Obama kind of teased the Islamic resentment of the West by talking about our perceived faults, and, you know, it was a very drastic difference between the two speeches. You know, if you look back at Obama's speech, he was talking about colonialism that was bad for Islam and the Cold War, where the Islamic majority countries were treated as proxies and we disregarded their aspirations. And he was talking about the sweeping change from globalization that made Islam to view the West as hostile to their traditions. You know, that was a big, clear contrast between the speech that we saw the other day, and to get all those people in that room who, again, these were like kings and sultans and crown princes,
right,
and presidents and prime ministers from all these different Islamic countries, to get them to sign that accord and to open that center for fighting the ideology that profanes Islam. We've talked about it on this show before, that
yes,
when you actually read the Quran, jihad is supposed to be an internal battle. It's not an external battle, and that's what this center, you know, a lot of people are poo-pooing this extremism center that they're opening over there, making fun of the orb and stuff, but I don't think people are grasping what it's really all about. And I've for years talked about this because I read the Quran. I wanted to know what's up with this. You know, after the whole Osama bin Laden thing and 9/11, I was like, I don't know anything about Islam. I need to know. So I read it. And it's clear as a bell. Jihad is an internal battle between you and Allah, and to live by the way Allah commands you to live. It's not an external battle, which ISIS has kind of profaned into
yes,
this, you know, throwing bombs and killing people and beheading
right,
people and crucifying people. And that's what this Center to Fight Extremism is all about. And for years I've been said that, you know, the normal Muslims need to reclaim the narrative away from these radicalized jihadists who are profaning the actual words of Muhammad that he received from Allah on the night journey when the angel Gabriel took him up to heaven to get the words of the Quran. You know, what ISIS and Al-Qaeda and all of them have seized the Islamic narrative and are preaching is not what the Quran says. And that's what this center that is the president and the King Salman have opened there in Riyadh is to fight. And that's a great thing because, you know, you have to fight this battle on more than one front, not just on the battlefield, but also ideologically. And this center that they've opened to fight the profanity of the Quran and profanity of Islam and turning it into this militant beheading thing, this is huge. And I think in the big picture, that was a big turning point by signing that and opening that center there. And like the president of Egypt said, you know, this new president of America is capable of doing the impossible. So I'm very optimistic about it.
Absolutely. And I didn't I didn't want to appear negative at the beginning, but I have issues with Palestine because, you know, Hamas are in charge in Palestine and they're a terrorist group. And it's notoriously difficult to get terrorist groups to kind of even conform, never mind, you know, change even in the slightest. And so that's why I have concerns with Palestine. But one of the things that really bothers me with a lot of ignorant people is that they have this ideology that if you're Muslim, you must be a terrorist or you must support terrorism. Because, you know, even though even though the percentage of Muslims that are, are terrorists and involved, with ISIS and want Sharia law, etc., is very low. When you consider how many actual Muslims there are in the world, it's something that we have to be really concerned about. But we have to do that in a way to be able to disseminate between your, average Muslim and a jihadist. And I think it's unfortunate that because we've had first-hand experience of terror attacks in the United States, that for some that actually scarily blinds them to who is actually a terrorist and who isn't.
Yes, and that's exactly what this new center is for, that fights the ideology that is a profanity, a perversion of Islam. That's what this center is for, and so I think it's genius and totally necessary, because what's going on is you've got the same problem we have over here. You've got a very loud, vocal minority presenting themselves as the majority. And
right.
So for the king and for the president to open this center over there, they're both going to co-chair it. So I know a lot of people I was noticing on social media were not even skeptical. They were just poo-pooing it, making fun of, that orb, the glowing orb that he put his hand on.
Right.
They were just mocking that and stuff, but they don't get it. If you're mocking it, making fun of it, you don't really understand what it's all about. And until Islam can seize the narrative away from the jihadists and give it back to the normal Muslims like Dr. Xander Gibb, who speaks a lot on Fox News. He's a correspondent, and he has, I can't remember the name of his organization, but Dr. Xander Gibb, people can Google it and find out, and that's who the narrative needs to be reclaimed. And so
yes.
I would assume that that same platform that he has is going to be put into this new center in Riyadh to fight the profanity and perversion of Islam that ISIS and Al-Qaeda and Hamas have latched onto.
Yes.
Because, again, they are the minority presenting themselves as the majority. And President Trump really called them out, and not called the
quite rightly so,
out, but called out these pockets of terrorists out, and he pled with that room full of very important diplomats and royalty to shun these people. He said, drive them out 3 times, and very loud, and that speech was well received. And
right.
So that, combined with the opening of this center, and also he proposed, he got them all to sign this thing about how can I explain it? Starving the money from these groups.
Right.
And so that's huge, too. And so for the first time, as far as the war on terror goes, I'm really optimistic that maybe we will see an end to this over the next decade or two.
Absolutely.
We've always kind of assumed that this is just something we have to deal with and contain. Maybe we don't. Maybe it actually can be eradicated. And I think that speech on Saturday, was it Saturday or Sunday? I don't remember. Is a turning point. I think we'll look back years from now and see that as the turning point. And kudos to those two guys, and I really wish that, the media, instead of fixating on these fake stories about Melania and stuff, had seen, I saw these pictures of President Trump, because, King Salman is kind of old and not well, and our president was kind of helping him walk and, holding his hand and helping him lift up. This is a really nice guy we got in the White House. And, of
yes.
course, none of that's covered in the media, but wasn't that he was helping this guy, the king, walk, because the king has some health issues and he's very old.
Aren't you glad that we kind of took a step back from the guy that we thought just sat and said you're fired and, fought with people and actually really got to know the real Donald Trump, because I really am. And I think that there are still people out there in America that need to do that. Now we got time for just a couple of calls. Let me let you know how this works. So we're going to be taking the calls through Facebook, and I must advise you that the calls cannot be made outside of the show via this method only during the show time. So if you want to call us, you can call us now. You go to Messenger on Facebook. You click on my name, and there's a telephone symbol, and you'll be able to call audio only, and we'll get you on. So we've got time for maybe one or two calls before our guest comes on. So go to Facebook Live, go to Messenger. Go to Facebook, go to Messenger, and in Messenger you type in Xander Gibb, and you click on the phone symbol, and will be able to call us, and we've probably got time for one or two calls. I really do think that Donald Trump is gonna kind of win through this negativity, because let's face it, they're gonna get bored. They're gonna get to a point where they're gonna be seen to be so stupid that nobody's bothered by it anymore. And just all of this about Russia, I'm kind of glad there is an investigation going on, because we can put this to bed, for good now, when it's all done and dusted. But can't we get on with kind of fixing the country and dealing with, the real things that are going on here, rather than ridiculous things that are just put out there in order to cause divide.
Yeah, and I smell something in the air. Just a couple hours ago, Maxine Waters was speaking here in California, and the local Democrat Party staff cut her mic off because she started on the impeach nonsense.
Wow.
And they cut her mic off, and Camille Paglia, I said it wrong for so many years, she came out the other day and she said Trump will be reelected because the Democrats have learned nothing, and once again, just like on Election Day last November, they didn't just vote for Donald Trump, they voted against the media. And
right.
Now the media is perhaps behaving even worse than they were during the general election. And that's re-elected because the Democrats have learned nothing. And so I do smell something in the air. And if you've noticed, the impeachment chatter has kind of died down a little bit. And if you guys listen to Rush Limbaugh today, you'll know why. But anyways, something's in the air, and eventually some of the smarter people in the Democrat Party are going to take the power away from these entrenched collusion between the Black Caucus, the Progressive Black Caucus, and the Progressive Caucus, the people who, under the direction of Rahm Emanuel in 2006, orchestrated this coup of the Democrat Party and got rid of all the normal Democrats, all
right.
the Jeffersonian Democrats. They were all kicked out and replaced with these crazy, they're not even progressive at this point. They're
right.
like these communist, anarchists, anti-America, anti-everything, and
absolutely
simply outraged politicians. And so I think that it's up to the young people, the grassroots, who are still Democrats, who feel like their party left them. And kind of like
I was one of those people.
The Democrat Party, and they'll reach a tipping point. It's critical
right.
mass. It wasn't the straw that broke the camel's back. It was all the straws.
Exactly.
That broke the camel's back.
We reached out to Maxine Waters' office this afternoon for comment on what had happened about them switching her mic off, and this is what she had to say.
I feel good. I knew that I wouldn't die. So good, so good. I got you.
There we are. That's what she had to say about
Amen.
that. I think it's kind of interesting that that wig has now become a race in America, because you know how many people have written to me and said, you've got to stop with the Maxine Waters stuff because it's not funny and it's racist. So I'm like, now wig is a race?
I disagree.
With Muslim is a race?
Relentlessly mocked.
She should. Because she's stupid.
A woman who has enriched herself and her own pocketbook and her own life on the backs of, some people who don't make a lot of money, because, her district is about one over from my district, and the way that they gerrymandered that, it goes through Hancock Park, which is over by Paramount Studios, which is the property there is equivalent to like Beverly Hills property. Not Beverly Hills up in the hills, but the flats, the downtown Beverly Hills.
Sorry.
And, you know, she has this weird carved out district, and that eventually, you know, the grassroots Democrats will figure out what's been going on and how much money this woman has made while in office, because she entered office as of meager means. She wasn't poor.
Absolutely.
She's a very wealthy woman right now.
Yeah, absolutely, and so is her husband. I just must pause for 1 second to bring on our guest today, writer and comedian Steven Snyder. Welcome back to the show, Steven. How is the world with you?
The world is fantastic. The sun is blue, the sun is shining, and I am in a great mood. Thanks for having me on again, Xander.
It's always a pleasure to live with myself and Thomas S. Schmitz, who I believe you know also.
Hey, Steven, I haven't seen you in forever.
Hey, Tom. Tom and I go way back. Tom and I, it's been a while since I've seen Tom, but how you doing, buddy?
I'm good. I haven't seen you since that 4th of July barbecue prior to your marriage. You were there with your fiance, and now she's your wife. So congratulations on that.
Well, thank you. The witness protection program, it has its drawbacks. You don't get to see the light of day that often, but I make it work.
I was telling Xander at the beginning of the show about that time we were at the Hollywood Congress of Republicans, and Andrew Breitbart was addressing us, and he was late, and he got up to the mic, and he started to speak, and then he stopped, and he said, I just have to stop right here. I just have to say this. This is the most handsome man I've ever seen, and he pointed right at you. Do you remember that?
Actually, besides the birth of my children and being married and being circumcised a few weeks ago, that was one of the...
And coming on this show, you missed one. Coming on this show.
And coming on this show is one of the highlights. Andrew was awesome. We presented him with a certificate of toughness from the Toughen Up America Network, and Andrew was great. What a tremendous guy.
Yeah, that was a good one. That was a really good one.
Absolutely. Rest in peace,
and he is
Andrew.
Yeah, and for him to take the time out to come address us and stuff. We used to get some really good guests out there, though. We had Sabo, too, the street artist. That was interesting. Were you there for that one, Steven?
I was there, and then I actually met him at a Ted Cruz event shortly after that, and he would not let me see the poster of Mr. Cruz that he had just developed. He was very, very adamant that he would not let me see it. I was, come on, Sabo, let me see it. He wouldn't let me see it.
Oh, yeah, Sabo is just a genius. I don't know if people know about Sabo, but he's the one that does a lot of the street art here in L.A., but he also does these... I wouldn't call them museum pieces. They're not artwork, but they are. And he did this one that he checked through baggage. It was a giant travel suitcase, those old-fashioned ones, they're trunks. And it said Hillary Clinton full of baggage. And if you opened it up like they did at TSA, it was full of black dildos. And it said Hillary Clinton, too much baggage, all over that. And so he did this performance art piece at LAX, and they had to open it up, and it was all full of black dildos.
So, Steven, I got to ask you, as a comedian, as a fellow comedian, what is your best Hillary Clinton joke? And then we're going to move on to Maxine Waters. But what's your favorite Hillary Clinton joke right now, apart from herself, because she is a huge joke?
I don't know. Where do you even begin? I would say, knock, knock.
Who's there?
Hillary, no.
Hillary, no who?
Exactly. She wasn't our president. Thank God.
I think mine is better. What is Hillary Clinton's favorite pizza?
What is Hillary Clinton's favorite pizza?
Little Caesars.
I like that.
So just before you came on, we were talking about Maxine.
I wish I could remember. Steven, you know that group that we belong to we're not supposed to talk about? Were you at the Reagan Library when Rush Limbaugh addressed us about 3 summers ago?
I was not there.
Darn it, because I wish for the life of me I could remember it, but Rush Limbaugh told the most filthy joke about Hillary, and I only remember the end. And it was about him and her in an elevator together, and she said, take off your shirt, take off your pants, and all this stuff. And the punchline was something that him saying, iron my shirt. And I don't remember the whole joke. It's not funny, only with that information. But for the life of me, I wish I could remember the entire joke, because it was hysterical. And this was like underneath Reagan's Air Force One in the big ballroom at the Reagan Library. And he came up and told this filthy, filthy joke about Hillary, and it was one of the funniest things I've heard in a long time.
You know, when I met Dennis Miller at the Reagan Library a few years ago, he was also really, really nasty. He did a couple of really good bits, because I think he lives in Santa Barbara now, but very, very funny guy, very talented. And I did make that one, and I was also able to make when Mark Levin came into Orange, and he was, again, funny, but he wasn't as dirty as Dennis.
One of my favorite things about Steven is that he's like me, because you know how there's a lot of conservatives who say, oh, we can't stoop to their level? Well, Steven and I are not those type of conservatives. We're always willing to stoop to their level, because you have to fight fire with fire, and I think you would agree with that, Steven.
Yeah, you know, there's too many weenies out there in the conservative Republican or libertarian movement or independents or what have you. Everyone's afraid of their own shadow. Everyone walks around on eggshells. Everyone's scared and offended and frightened and weak. And
yeah, where does all that crap come from? You know, I've spent the last few years with people telling me, you know, when I moved over politically to the other side, as it were, I've had Republicans telling me for so long, you can't have a political show with humor. And I'm like, but I'm a comedian, and I see the humor in everything, so why can't I see the humor in politics and have it as part of the show? And obviously it works, because we're still here 5 years later.
Yeah,
you have to, because, you know, look at what the other side's got. You know, there's a lot of people, young people, who they believe that the news, well, it used to be Jon Stewart, but now it's Stephen Colbert. They actually consider that news. And it's not. It's comedy,
really?
But it is, you know, political, and a lot of people get all their news from that. So, you know, you have to have an alternative on our side, too. And I think that there should be a lot more, too.
You didn't just compare me to Stephen Colbert, did you? Because I'm gonna have to go and bang my head against the wall for an hour.
Yeah, I did, in the sense that from the comedic point of view,
right.
You know, you have to be able to fight fire with fire, like we were saying before, and they've got it on their side. They've got almost all of Hollywood, you know, who does that. You know, you watch these shows and they make fun of the Pope and the Republicans, but never Mohammed.
No.
You know, and never Democrats, you know, so it's important. And so, yeah, I did compare you to Stephen Colbert, because the premise of the show, you know, you use comedy and politics, you know, very well fused together. It's a compliment.
Well, thank you. I will take that. But I want to ask you, Stephen, who gets to decide what is funny? Because I don't know about you, but when I'm testing out stuff that I'm going to use either on the show or in stand-up, you know, some of it works, some of it doesn't, because I don't know what the ratio is for you, but mine's about, I don't know, 60-40, you know, in the favor of what is funny. But isn't, like, you know, they say beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Isn't, you know, comedy in the ear of the listener?
You know, you're exactly right, and what you said is so true. You have to try out your humor on various formats: live, family, friends, radio, improv. You have to really work it out. I have about 30 to 40 pages of jokes I'm constantly working on to try to improve. And you know what? What bothers me the most are these people that go to comedy clubs and are offended. Don't be, if you're offended by everything, don't go to a comedy club.
Right.
You know, look, what Colbert said a few weeks ago about whatever holster with Trump, I disagree with Colbert on everything, but we can't censor him.
No.
He's a jackass comedian. He cannot be censored. Leave
Right.
the guy alone. Not boycott him. Don't watch him because he's not funny. Don't watch him because, you know, you don't find him entertaining. But don't boycott him.
Yeah.
Because we have too many people that are pearl clutchers and these professional
Where are my
people
pearls?
who are offended by everything, and I think what it comes down to it is we've lost our sense of humor.
I think you're absolutely right, and I think in America, especially during the last 8 years, I think America kind of did lose its sense of humor somewhat. I mean, I've had complaints on the show. People don't always realize that, I'm the producer of the show and it's my show. And they send emails saying, can you make sure Xander Gibb doesn't say offensive things about Hillary Clinton in future? I mean, she's half of my act. Why would I stop saying offensive things about Hillary Bang Bang Clinton? But is there where is the line? Because I've done stand up for the last 20 years, and I've kind of died on my ass, and I've said things I shouldn't say, but you learn kind of as you go along to feel the audience. But where is that line, Stephen? And is it different for everybody? Do you think?
It's different for everybody, but I agree with what George Carlin says. Anything can be funny. It depends on the context, okay? And, he's used the, rape can be funny, and I agree, because then he says, picture Porky Pig raping Elmer Fudd.
Right.
And I think anything can be funny, and I don't think there's one topic, not one out there, that you can't make a joke about, because jokes and comedy, there's a little bit of truth in every single joke, whether
right.
that's 99% truth and 1% humor, or whether that's 1% truth and 99% humor. There's a little bit of truth in every single joke.
Yes, I don't get it, and I think that's where I think that's where self-depreciating humor comes along. I do a lot of self-depreciating humor, but I got into trouble in a gay club once in the UK for telling a joke about AIDS, because AIDS is not. There's nothing funny about AIDS, and I wasn't allowed to mention fresh blood. As in, like new comedians, because that was offensive to gay people. And so, I'm like, the LGBTQ, ABCDFT, ever expanding acronym community needs to get a freaking sense of humor. Because if you can't laugh at yourself, then you can't kind of laugh at other things very well.
Exactly. And you know what? Everybody gets AIDS. It's not just gays. I mean, straight people get AIDS.
Yes.
That are sharing needles. I mean, everybody gets AIDS. So
yeah.
It's not even a gay thing. It's a society thing. And
yeah.
I believe you can also joke about it. I mean, look at Charlie Sheen. I mean, hello.
Yeah. Yeah, there was uproar in my grandmother's knitting circle in the 80s because they were all concerned about getting AIDS from sharing needles.
Yeah. I was only ever concerned about getting AIDS. At one point in my life, and that was when I was partaking in massive amounts of drugs with Mr. Sheen and Mr. Johnson. A few years ago. But look, we can't talk about those stories. The lawsuits are still pending.
No, absolutely. Yeah. I just, I don't know, for me, I kind of think nothing is off limits, but there are some things I wouldn't talk about. But I kind of think that your audience, and if you're getting paid for it, kind of there are dictations there, too. But Thomas, I want to ask you, as a, I know you probably don't consider yourself as a comedian, but I think you're pretty funny. And in our repartee, we have a lot of back and forth. But do you feel that there are things you don't want to hear jokes about?
Well, not really. I mean, there are some jokes that, when I hear them, I'm like, oh, they shouldn't have said that. But, for the most part, no. But I do think, again, with these shows like Stephen Colbert and prior to him, Jon Stewart, nothing was off limits for them.
Right.
And people need to grasp that we're in a battle right now for the country. We didn't win just with the election of President Trump. The battle between, our sovereignty and globalism is still there. And if the other side is willing to go there, we have to be willing to go there and even further down below if we expect to compete, and not just compete, but to win against these guys. And so I really don't see be any other way. But we've got a big portion of the conservative base that gets offended and endlessly says, "Oh, we can't stoop to their level." We have to stoop to their level. In fact, we have to stoop below their level if we expect to keep America sovereign and not hand it over to these gosh darn globalists. Because that's what will happen if we continue to say, "Oh, we can't stoop to their level." Then they're going to win.
Right, absolutely, and I think that I don't know about you, but I kind of think that humor actually. For me, I've had some pretty dire situations recently, and if I wasn't able to laugh about them and talk about them in humorous terms, I would be done, basically. But I think that there are some. I think the Republican Party has kind of changed so much, even just in the time that I've been involved with it, and it's actually gotten more. Open. Would you agree with that, Stephen?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think you look at what Trump said at the Republican National Convention, where he was the first Republican to basically embrace the gay community. You know what I mean? And then they're saying he's anti-gay. I'm like, did you not just hear the man? Did you not? And he got a standing ovation from who? Republicans.
Yes.
Independent. The deplorable crowd, because at the end of the day, if you look at the true definition of the word liberal in the sense of Thomas Jefferson, the classical definition of liberal being free, live and let live, leave everybody alone.
Right.
We're technically the liberals. The left has hijacked that word.
Right.
They're not liberals. They're the opposite. They are authoritarian, control freak fascists. And I agree with what you guys were just talking about. We have to go below the belt, and you gotta get in the mud with these guys.
Right.
That's how you win.
Absolutely. I don't think. I'm glad that this has changed, and I actually think that Donald Trump has been part of that change, because I certainly don't feel when I first, stepped across the aisle and stopped being a Democrat and became a libertarian / Republican, that I felt that the party was as welcoming as towards me as, an outspoken gay fat American. But I feel right at home now, which to me is great, because don't you think that all, political parties should be willing to grow and change and accommodate to a point?
Oh, definitely. And the way the Republicans were going before the election of Donald Trump, it was based on an old line frame of reference.
It was.
It was a pastoral, finger-wagging party. And that's why it was so important to... Because I always say, the primary is the general, and that's why it was so important to win the primary. And it was hard to win the primary. In many ways, I think winning the primary was much more difficult than winning the general election,
right?
As far as I'm concerned. And I still have people who won't speak to me because of the things in the op-eds that I wrote that were fully referenced and fully footnoted about Ted Cruz and his work as an attorney prior to entering politics. And, a lot of people didn't like especially the one that was called Red Ted. A lot of people didn't like that, and they're still mad at me for that. But it was so important that we did not nominate this old-fashioned, old frame of reference, pastoral,
right,
finger-wagging Republican. We needed some new energy, some new blood. We needed this populist, truly
right,
inclusive, modern-day Republican that's about economics and
right,
kind of ignores the social issues and stays true to the real platform of the Republican Party. Because even back before Donald Trump, when you would read the actual platform of the Republican Party, the Republicans in both houses of Congress were not really preaching and teaching and walking the walk and talking the talk
right,
according to the platform. It didn't match.
Yes.
And Donald Trump changed all that, and that's a good thing. And it's changed forever.
Absolutely.
You can't put a genie back in the bottle. So
no.
That's a really, really good thing that he did. And that's why it had to be him from day one when we had those 17 candidates, we would have been sitting here under President Hillary Clinton right now.
God,
None of those guys.
hush your mouth, child.
None of them, not one of them.
I want to give the final word to you, Stephen. I want to ask you, is it one of the things that I'm happy to do on this show is I impersonate President Trump, whether it be very good or not, and anytime the word China is in a text, I say it in the way that Donald Trump does. Now, a lot of people would say, "Oh, that's so disrespectful," and Xander, you shouldn't be so disrespectful about the president. But I kind of think he'd get a kick out of it. Is it appropriate to be humorous about the president?
Absolutely. I mean, look, I love the guy. Okay, I disagree with him bombing Syria. I disagree with some of his, some of the things some of these rhinos and these establishment frauds that he's brought in.
Right.
But it's definitely okay to make fun of the president. I mean, who's to say that we can't make fun of each president? Now, I know it was
Sure.
the law to make fun of Obama.
Oh, because it was racist. Just like we said before you came on the show, that you can't say anything bad about Maxine Waters' wig because it's racist. Because wig is now a race. So we had to somehow get away from this ideology that you can't joke about someone because they're black or they're a different ethnicity because it's racist. And even if it is, I don't care. I'm not saying it's okay to be racist, but I'm saying that humor should never be construed in that way or misconstrued in that way.
No, and I got to tell you, I think it's totally okay to make fun of Trump. Look, I'm sure he's got a great sense of humor. I mean, look, he's an orange Cheeto. I mean, this guy tans more than John Boehner.
Right.
This doesn't cry as much as John Boehner does.
So isn't that...
It's okay to make fun of Trump.
So isn't that racist then to make fun of Trump? Because if Trump is orange is a color, so it's anti-orange by that mentality. So you racist bastards out there, leave my president alone. So we are.
Orange is the new black.
Yes, orange is definitely the new black, and thank God, and God bless President Trump. We are so out of time. Thank you for joining us today, Stephen. Tell people where they can find you and find out what you're doing.
You can go to Steven with a V, dsnyder.com, StevenDSnyder.com. Just redid my website. On there you can find out all the fun stuff I've got going on, my comedy, my writings, and a new book I'm working on, but StevenDSnyder.com.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Stephen. Give our love to your lovely wife, Amanda, and we will speak to you again very soon.
Thanks, Xander.
Thanks a lot.
Take it easy, guys.
Take care.
See you, Stephen.
Bye-bye. That was the fabulously funny Steven D. Snyder. Somebody actually emailed to me today and said, "You have D. Snyder on your show?" I was like, no, it's Steven D. Snyder, which I thought was kind of hilarious. Thanks to my wonderful co-host, the fabulous Thomas S. Schmitz. Tell people very quickly where they can find you, Thomas.
Oh, it's easy to find me. Twitter at Thomas S. Schmitz, at ThomasSSCHMITZ. And you can find me as an editor and contributor at www.conservatives4palin.com. That's number 4, conservatives4palin.com. Twitter at Thomas S. Schmitz.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Thomas. Thomas will be back with us on Friday. Have a great week, Thomas, and give our best to Jim.
I will do that. Thank you, Xander.
Thanks a lot, Thomas. Take care.
Have a good night.
You too. That was Thomas S. Schmitz. Make sure you check him out at conservatives4palin.com. Thanks to everyone in the live feed. Thanks for sharing. We had a troll in there and we blocked him and got him gone. This is for you, sir. We will be back with you same time, same place tomorrow night. Please press the share button before you go. We need at least 5 shares before you go. It's free. It costs nothing. Just share the show. I love you all. Take care. Bye-bye.
Love it has been good to me this time around. Things were never bound to change when it was found. Sugar never tasted sweeter on my lips. My heart is now intact and I can find no rest. This is
cannot know the bounds, and your eyes don't dictate.
Life, it has been good to me this time around. Things were they were bound to change when it was found. Sugar